Hey guys, so I am back out in the greenhouse again. At the moment it's very lightly sprinkling outside, so I don't even know if you can hear it. But it was absolutely pouring a little bit ago. I mean, just a gully washer, as the saying goes. It was seriously coming down. We've got standing water all over the driveway and all of that. So, you know, I have talked about that I had some major plans for a drastic change to the homestead. And I have been planning on sharing that with you for weeks now, but it seems like every time I set a day aside that, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna film that video, it rains, or there's some sort of urgent thing that has to be dealt with, and it just keeps not happening. So I have decided I'm just going to do it anyways and talk you through the details, and hopefully I can pull up some video clips to maybe help visualize what it is that I'm going to do and all of that. Now, before I get into that, I just wanted to say that I went to the Mercantile this morning, Ashley Mercantile in Coleman, Alabama, which I have shared with you guys several times over the past year. But they had gotten in a big shipment of things and had a few things that they've never had before. So I headed there. I was running some errands this morning, and so I popped on by and checked it out. They have a bunch of new candles that just smell absolutely amazing, locally made. They had an enamelware teapot. They've got some more of that yellow speckled enamelware. What else? Oh, they had a children's set. It's totally usable, like you can bake with and everything, but it's kid-sized. And so there's like a little, like a baking sheet, muffin pan, mini muffin pans, mini loaf pans, little baking dishes. Really cute. So all sorts of good stuff. And I can't remember if I mentioned it the last time I talked about the Mercantile, but they do actually have things on their website now where you can order directly from their website. They just have a selection because they have too much stuff in their store, you know, to actually put all on the site. But they do have a handful of things there, so I will put a link to that down below if you would like to check that out. Alright, so the big change. I talked a few weeks ago about how I was taking a year off from gardening. I'm starting it this fall. It's already begun. I'm not going to be planting a fall garden. I won't be planting a spring garden. The next garden that I will plant is going to be autumn of 2022. So I'm going to be taking the time off, but I'm not really going to be resting a whole lot other than from gardening. I'm not the kind of person who can just sit and be idle. I'm constantly doing things. I'm a multitasker too. Like in the rare chances that I get to sit down and watch something, which is usually catching up on my YouTube subscriptions. I do have a few channels that I try to watch. Even when I'm sitting down and doing that, I'm doing something else, which most of the time I'm not actually sitting down. I usually try to catch up on those while I'm cooking dinner or while I'm doing something else with my hands, like crocheting baby blankets or what have you. I'm not the kind of person who sits idle. That is why I have to make myself actually intentionally take a rest on the Sabbath, and because I am constantly on the go, I need to do that. I need to give my body that rest and all of that. So while I'm not going to be working in the garden, harvesting, planting and harvesting and all of that, I still have lots of other things that I'm going to be doing, because I had this huge list of projects. Some people would call it a honey-do list, but it's a me-do list. It's the list of things that I want to work on or have been needing to work on and just have not had the time to do so. Like painting the rest of the house that I wanted to get painted, or fixing the backyard fence, the dog fence, because, you know, we put that in when we first moved in. My son and I, Mr. Smith was overseas at the time, and I didn't really have a way of getting that fence nice and tight, or at least I didn't have the knowledge of how to do it. Now I know how to do it, but that fence, while it's still up, it's a little saggy and it's a little rough. It's not looking good. So we need to kind of fix up that fence and replace the gate and things like that. So I'm not going to be sowing and harvesting, but I am going to be working on lots of things. But I talked about in that video how I was going to take this opportunity to make some drastic changes, that it was something I had been thinking about for some time, but I just didn't know when I would go about doing it or how I would go about doing it. But now that I'm taking this year off of gardening, this is the time to do it. And we're just gonna go for it. So when we started our homestead, when we purchased our property, we got the land, and we got a house, and we got a barn shed. That was it. There was nothing else on this property. So the day we closed on the house, I went back to my previous house, got on the internet, put in my order for McMurray Hatchery, because I could not wait to have chickens. We had chickens in a farmhouse many, many years ago, and I loved having chickens, and I couldn't wait. And so the day we cleared on the house, I put in my order, and that meant I had a set amount of time to get my chicken coop built. So I spent several weeks working on the original chicken coop, got that built just in time because those chicks were getting really big, but I was able to get them out there. And the original chicken coop, you know, it's in a good spot. You know, I picked a spot that was close to the house, but not too close to the house. And so it's fine. So that was the first thing that went in as far as infrastructure went. And then of course there's other things that got added, like the garden fence, and then the additional fence for what was originally the goats but is now Sophie and Amos. Then we added the other area over there for the goats in their bigger area. And, you know, then we added the garden out front. And so there's ever so slowly been things that have been added. But there's been several times where I've thought to myself, you know, if I were to start this over, I wish I would have put this over here. Or I wish I would have configured something differently. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. The first major change is the in-ground garden. So I started that garden originally, you know, the first year that we were here. It started off really, really tiny, and every year I added a little bit more. I kind of reconfigured the way it was set up, and eventually it got to what it is right now, a fairly large fenced-in area, in-ground beds with a couple raised beds thrown in there. We've got the bantam coop over in the corner, and it's been a process of working on that soil and getting it built back up into healthy soil, because the soil that this house and everything was built on is just really old farmland, clay, and it didn't have much life in it. Now this past year we built another chicken coop, and I call it like the main coop. It's our big chicken coop, and we built it on the side of that barn shed. And you know, we used to let our chickens run loose all over the place, which is the original reason for me fencing in my gardens. I wanted to keep the chickens out because they are absolutely destructive to a garden. Of course, I do that to keep deer and everything else out as well, but it was number one because of the chickens. But I really got to where I was super tired of chickens being everywhere. You know, they would get up on the porch, they would get up on the furniture, and I was over it. And so we put in the poultry netting fence, we put it up, kept the chickens contained in a chicken yard, which is over there kind of behind the barn, and it wraps around the original coop. So the original coop and original run that is attached to that is inside that fence. And back in the autumn, around November or so, we put in posts and everything, and we were going to put up permanent fencing, solid, you know, metal fencing. But then we had the tractor go in the shop, and there were just delays, and we just never got around to doing it. But as it turns out, it's okay. It's okay that we didn't get that fence put in, because that brand new chicken coop faces directly towards the in-ground garden, which is already fenced in. The in-ground garden area is going to be transitioned into the chicken yard. You know, I told Mr. Smith that I would like to do that, and you know, that means I don't have that growing space anymore. That once I do that, we're only going to have this front garden area. So that will become the new chicken yard. So I'm just going to take fencing and install it from either side of the coop, go straight to that fence, open it up and connect it all, and they'll be able to come out of their coop and go straight out into the new chicken yard. You know, we have a big lilac bush that we planted out there that will provide them lots of shade. I do have some of the arches out there that I'll probably leave in place and kind of try and plant some things that can grow up over it to give them shade as well, and just kind of make a better environment for them in a space that's already set up and everything else. It has electric fencing around the top to keep predators out, and I think this will just be a better setup, because I kind of wish I had put the chickens over there to begin with. So it won't take a lot to make that happen other than connecting the fencing. I do have a number of things that I'm going to dig up and move. I have some perennials out there, which I won't want to leave those in the chicken yard because they'll just be destroyed. But I'll dig those up, and then of course I do have a couple of raised beds out there. I'm not going to leave those in the chicken yard. I'll just go ahead and disassemble them. I'll take the soil, put it in wheelbarrows, and take it all out of there. So none of that will be wasted. It'll just be repurposed in a different location. Now I know it sounds like then that I'm going to be really limiting my growing space by giving up my big in-ground garden area, because without that, then all I have is my raised beds out front. Well, I have a plan right here. So hopefully you can kind of see this. So now this is not exactly to scale, but this orange right here is kind of my front porch. So if you imagine you're looking down over my house, and that's my front porch, and then this is the fenced in area directly in front of it. Here's all of my raised beds. Like right there is my loofah gourd arch. Here's my blueberries. You can see I've got a couple pear trees out there. Over at the far end, here's my elderberries I just planted, my raspberries I put in. So this is what it looks like now, but here's the plan. So as you can see, here's my house, and then this right here is the backyard where the dogs get to go. Right here is my greenhouse that we are currently in. So the front garden fence, which ends right here, is going to be extended all the way down and around, and it's going to connect to the backyard. Down here between the fence and the greenhouse, I'm going to put in a couple of big in-ground garden beds. Those will be for things like sweet potatoes or squash or corn or whatever it is I want to put in there. Up here next to the house, I've got some space for some raised beds. Most likely, I'll just take the ones that are out there in the big garden right now. When I disassemble them, I'll put them right here. Down here along this side, I'm going to build all sorts of raised beds, long raised beds. I estimate they'll probably be about 25 feet long each. We'll know for sure when I start actually putting them in, but that's just kind of a rough estimate. But I will make them all even. This drawing isn't done that way, but I want to be able to drive the truck or tractor straight in and come all the way up into the middle. So this is the plan. So the front raised bed garden area is going to wrap around the side, and all of that green that you see out there will become the new garden. I can just walk out here and I can actually, like in my mind's eye, I can see exactly what it will look like. I can visualize what it will be like. So I have already come out here with string and stakes, and I've marked off where the fence is going to go. I've brought out a whole bunch of T-posts to start putting those in. I've got the corner posts to put in. And so we have just been waiting to get some cooler temperatures because it's been really hot. So hopefully we can get started with that in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I've already got the fencing, I've got everything. Everything except a gate. I will have to pick up the big gate to put in there. But yeah, I think this is going to end up being really good. Now, I will say building all new raised beds is going to take a lot of work, a lot of expense. So I don't know how many I'll have at first. It may end up just being we add 1 or 2 every year until I have all of the beds that I want out here or that will fit. So we'll just have to kind of play it by ear, and who knows, maybe I'll do some more in-ground beds and just see how it goes. But here comes the rain. So I'm looking forward to this, and I think ultimately when this project is finished, Lord willing, it'll end up being an even better setup than I had before. Because to be honest, having my garden in 2 separate areas like that was a little bit of a challenge. Having to haul tools and supplies back and forth all the time just kind of made it a little bit of an ordeal. So now it'll all be in one area, and I have a couple other things that I'm going to put out here in the garden as well, but I will share about those another day. I hope to see some of you at Homesteaders of America. If you are there and you see me, definitely wave me down and say hello. So, thanks for hanging out with me here again at the homestead. I will talk to y'all next time.